It's Thursday, October 13th. This is a SPY pre-open report. I think everyone by now knows the CPI data produced a negative result. Futures were up pretty big, but I'll show you in a second right to the green line that I had in play for where the monthly chart turns green. Never quite got above there. So they were up big, and then when the report came out, big drop, and we've continued lower ever since. After the initial drop, there was no pause, and we've continued lower ever since. So now we have a range. If you look at the daily charts from the prior days, you can see here the high and low of the range is just dramatically to the downside here. So clearly we're breaking out to the downside. The tricky question always when you gap down big, how much momentum, since the Dow futures are down like 500 points, how much more, even though the Dow futures can clearly get to down 1,000, you don't know how much momentum you're going to get right out of the gates, but you're just going to have to play the downside here, and it's going to be a little tricky in terms of that opening first bar is going to get much momentum when all the momentum is, may have already been sucked out right here, even though we're going to likely head lower in some form. So what I did, or I'm starting to do, is going back and looking at some targets. Obviously, you can see here, my first target here was taken out. These are big picture targets on the yellow line. It looks like in the pre-market, that's going to take that out. Even if we open up around here, we've reached that target. So our next target becomes down here, and you can see in a second, I'll go to the longer term charts. There are various other targets down below, and that's kind of what I had to do is go back to the day. This is in a second, I'll go forward, but I went back here to the daily charts. What you're seeing here is this was our first target that's being hit now, and now you have a big green bar here back, a long time ago, November, I don't even know if it's 2021, last year, I guess. There's a fair value gap in here, and that's where I think, is going to be filled. So this next yellow line is kind of the target on the downside. Let's get back to the daily chart here. You can see, since we're going to open up below this line, it looks like this should be filled. So the 342 area is likely to be filled in some form on this move down. Then once you get below there, you see the big green bar. If we do get below there, then we start working to the monthly chart where I went back. And right now we're in the phase of kind of going for these lower green bar here. If we get below all these other yellow lines, and that's close to some other big targets. So if we get down here to the low of this green bar, we're likely going to take out these two red bars here, and that's all the way in the 3,200 area. So if you look at the pre-market chart, let me tune it back to a 15-minute kind of look. You can see here, even though we're going to kind of open right around this area right here, lower blue line, there's still three different targets to be met in the bigger picture. So you can comfortably stay to the downside. It's just a question when you have a big gap, how it's all going to play out today. You're going to get, let me zoom this back in a little bit. On the opening price action, again, let's just see how 15-minute structure kind of unfolds. If you get, ideally, I guess you're going to get a green bar, maybe to take out some kind of start up and then pause. Then you'll have an opportunity to at least get short and take out the pre-market lows, and then see if you get followed through from there. If you get a big red bar below here to start, then you're at exhaustion risk a little bit on the daily chart. 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be the fifth down day in a row. So at some point you might get people buying in here, but any buying at this point, since you're always going to be below the midpoint of the prior day and the midpoint of this 3-day consolidation, you're just going to have to look for broadening action higher that fails, and then you can maybe sell into that and try to look for, you'll see the targets that are formed on the downside today. So obviously you're not going to buy today, even though you never know if you're going to get any kind of a sharp attempted rally. Near the open is going to be the key. Ideally, I guess I'd like to see a little move up, maybe to test this yellow line and then fail, and then look to play some short side to take out the pre-market lows and see if we get continuation. But you got to just stay on the downside here overall. Again, going back to that weekly chart, let me bring that forward. I was always looking in my mind for this week, before I even want to get comfortable looking long in general, I wanted this weekly chart to turn up, and now we're going to be down here on the week. It's going to be a big, and at that point, we're just going to have to see how next week unfolds, if it could even start to hit some of these targets and begin to reverse, but that's going to take a while. So let's see what happens today at the Open. 15-minute bar will be the key.